Okay, so now that we've had time for the glue to dry overnight, the rock epoxy, which we glued the fins on, and the motor mount, the forward centering ring, it's now time to go ahead and lay up some fillets on the inside where the fins meet the motor tube, and another fillet along where the forward centering ring mounts. I may elect also to put, before that batch of epoxy dries, to go ahead and put a fillet around the leading edge of the front centering ring also. I'm going to do this off camera because it's pretty monotonous. It's the same thing, and you're not going to be able to see as I work down in the tube. But what I'm going to do is, after I lay up the fillets and get all the epoxy in there that I need, then I'm going to go ahead and glue the centering ring on. And I've shown how this works before, so there's no secret there. I'm going to glue that on, but before I glue this on also, I need to mention I'm going to glue the rail button in. Now, one thing I did a little different is, let me unscrew this screw and I'll show you what I did. I took the mounts, the two rail mounts, over to the drill press, and I drilled two 5/64 holes in the base in order that when I glue these in, let me show you, when I glue these in, turn it over this way, the epoxy is not only going to adhere the base to the cardboard, but additionally it may ooze up into those holes, which will resist any twisting motion as well, because ultimately I'm going to have to obviously screw the button in, and if I ever need to replace the button, I don't want this to ever come loose on me. So by drilling those two holes, it gives more purchase and anchors the button mount to the cardboard tube. So I'm going to do that just prior to sliding the centering ring into place. So again, I'm going to do this off camera, and we will come back when I am complete. Well, I figure since I've got this epoxy, I don't want it to go to waste, and it's kind of thick, which is fine for what I want to do. I want to lay down a fillet on the inside of the rocket body tube up against the aft centering ring, and also lay a fillet around the motor tube inside. So let me go ahead and do that with what I got. So that is the last of the 3 fins. We've got the fillets in place nicely, and this has gone on over a course of a few days. I've done 1 fin per day, and I'll tell you, the first 2 came out like glass. They're just super smooth. I think it'll take very little fine tuning with sandpaper to blend it into the tube and the fin. There might be a little bit of a ridge where the tape was, but I tried to smooth that out with a Q-tip and some alcohol. I think it's going to work out pretty well. In addition to this 3rd and final fin, as you saw, I did install the rail button tab to the inside of the tube there. So same batch of glue, we'll just let that sit overnight as well. And then once everything's dry, tomorrow I hope to glue in some epoxy, regular epoxy, not rock epoxy, with some black pigment color to clean up and seal the back end of that aft centering ring. So we're just going to let that sit and get ready for the next steps. Thanks for watching. I wanted to point out one last thing. After I finished with the rail button, and of course the fin was done before that, I still had quite a bit of rocket epoxy left on my little dish here. So I figured, you know what, let's go ahead and use the rest of that up on that fillet on the forward centering ring. Where the forward centering ring goes, if you remember, I pushed the ring in from the front, so it built up a fillet on the back side of it, but there was no fillet on the front, so I went ahead and took just a wooden dowel and the remainder of the epoxy and just kind of created it's crude and ugly, but it's sufficient and it's going to help hold. So I did create a fillet around the perimeter of that forward ring. So now we're just going to let everything sit overnight and see what we got tomorrow. Okay, we are going to now attach the Aeropack motor retainer onto the aft end of the motor tube. So what I've went ahead and done is I took some thin CA glue and I just ran a bead along the edge of the cardboard to just help keep the cardboard strong and from opening up on me, kind of unraveling the spiral, so it just kind of strengthens that. I went ahead and did the outer ring as well. So for the motor retainer, I went ahead and just ran a light run of sandpaper on there just to roughen it up just a little bit, even though there are ridges on there. And I also ran some sandpaper around the outer perimeter just to give the glue some more purchase. And for this purpose, we're going to be using JB Weld instead of regular epoxy. So this is a pretty straightforward process. Just going to mix parts A and B. Alright, so here we go. We want to make sure our ridges are on the side we're going in on. And I'm just going to lay it on. Kind of twist as I go. And I've also got a rubber mallet that I'll use. In fact, I'm going to need that right now to kind of help get it going. Looks like we got it. Okay, and then I'll take some Q-tips with alcohol and just kind of clean that joint. I think one more pass will do it. Yep. Okay, we've got a nice joint. Just want to make sure there's no gaps anywhere in there. Looks good. Now let me take a popsicle stick and just kind of round out this fillet that's sort of been created here at the bottom. And we're going to we're going to coat the bottom of this with 30-minute epoxy with some black pigment color in it, just to help clean things up and make things look more tidy. So whatever discoloration we're going to have, because we got the beige and now the gray and all these different colors with different epoxies, but it'll all even out when I pour that black epoxy mix. Okay, that's sufficient. That'll work. So there we go. Now we'll just let that set up and dry overnight as well. And then when that's all done, then we'll be able to go ahead and do our black pigmented epoxy on the inside. So there you have it. Now the motor retainer is attached. So now we've got the motor retainer JB welded on to the motor tube, and we've still got all this exposed wood, and I just want to clean this area up a little bit. So what I decided to do is take some 30-minute epoxy, mix it up really good, and then add some black pigment to it. And then I add a little bit of rubbing alcohol into the mix just to make it a little runnier and thinner so it'll flow better. So I'm going to pour this in and sort of spread it around. Now, one thing I want to point out, you're probably wondering, what is this Q-tip doing here? One of the holes that was left in the retaining ring, I left it open. And the reason is, and this is just being, I'm sure, a little silly on my part, but I didn't want it to be a sealed compartment between those two centering rings. I wanted a little bit of a vent so air can escape. So I went ahead and left that hole open, so that way any hot air or whatever can escape and not put pressure outward on the body tube itself. Whether that works or does anything at all, I don't know, but I figured it can't hurt to leave at least one hole open as a vent. So that being said, I plugged it with the Q-tip, and then as this hardens, I'll pull the Q-tip back out, and then hopefully it'll just leave that hole remaining. So I'm going to go ahead and pour this mixture into our compartment here and just let it flow freely. There we have it. I think that looks pretty sharp. Okay, and as we get closer, like I said, to it hardening, I'll go ahead and pull that Q-tip out. So, all right, there we go.